And then we go on to the next level, is becoming a formal teacher of presence, so to speak. In other words, you may become a spiritual teacher. You teach presence directly, not through the medium of some other activity. You teach presence directly, and that is can be extremely powerful, but it is also important that you do not fool yourself, which is easy to do. One way of fooling yourself is, and I've observed it quite a few times, some people have a great spiritual experience. Maybe they go to a retreat, or they are out in nature somewhere, or something happens, and for a few hours or a few days or a few weeks, they're in that wonderful transcendent state of absolute presence. And that's beautiful when it happens. And then they begin, they feel, oh, now it's time to teach presence. In many cases, I have observed that the experience subsides after a while and has not been integrated successfully. In other words, their daily life still manifests quite a bit of dysfunction and negativity. So it's always advisable, if you've had a spiritual experience, to give it some time, and so that it becomes incorporated at a deeper level. And there's no need to wait for a spiritual experience. Not everybody who awakens through one spiritual experience, because an experience ultimately, the word even implies that it has a beginning and an end. A spiritual experience has a beginning. There is the experience. It has a beginning and an end. If it has no end, it's no longer an experience. Then it's your normal state of being. So a lot of wisdom is required, and a lot of vigilance is required in yourself to know whether you are ready to become a teacher of presence in a formal sense of the word. And if it happens naturally, that is usually preferable than immediately saying, I am a teacher, and now you're going to advertise and so on. I'm now going to do the workshop. You might even get a publicist or something, and a more natural way would be gradually. This happened to me over many years. For several years, my teaching happened in people's living rooms. So people said, oh, can you come? I'm going to invite some friends. Can you come and talk to us? And for several years, I went to people's living rooms and talked to them about spirituality. And I was a teacher of presence already, without having didn't have that terminology. The terminology that I use now was not fully developed at that point. And gradually I realized that I am, in conceptual terms, a spiritual teacher. I only realized that after quite some time. The teaching was already happening, and said, oh, I'm actually a spiritual teacher, which of course is a mental concept. I'm not a spiritual teacher, except in the moment of of teaching. But on a conceptual level, let's say, yeah, I'm a spiritual teacher. If it happens naturally, that is a good sign. People ask you to give a little talk here or there, or you find that you begin to be helpful to other human beings, and your words seem to come out of you. You find yourself saying things that you didn't know beforehand. They came out of the present moment, the present that you embodied in the moment. So then another possibility, of course, is that you were one of the helping professionals, and then the presence that came in very strongly, eventually you may have realized that the whatever technique or structure you used was no longer that helpful, and you transcended it completely. So the transition then happened from being a helping professional to then letting go of whatever modality you used, and then it was replaced by just presence. And so then you become a formal teacher of presence. Now, life will show you what the right path is for you. The path of being a formal spiritual teacher is not for everybody, and it is not necessary in order to be an effective agent for change in this world to become a spiritual teacher. There are a formal spiritual teacher. If you are a teacher of presence, as you embody presence in your work with people, if you're in a helping profession, that is an extremely powerful tool for change. And if you are not in a helping profession, but simply embody presence in your everyday life, you become also a powerful teacher of presence. So there is not one way that is necessarily superior to any other way. It is not a progression from embodying presence in your everyday life to then starting to help people in a more structured way, and then going on to become a formal spiritual teacher. For some humans that may happen, but that is not necessarily the case. For most people that is not the case. It's not that you move necessarily from one to the other. It's not a hierarchical thing. You can be as powerful a teacher of presence by embodying presence in your everyday life, in the situations that you deal with, as being a formal spiritual teacher. So whatever is right for you, life will show you what the right path is for you, and they're all of equal importance, those paths. It's amazing how many people, even if you were in a simple job that you're doing, but you're doing it in presence, you would be amazed how many human beings you affect through your presence. I've sometimes meet people like that. Occasionally it could be a waiter in a restaurant, or it could be a taxi driver. Occasionally you meet people like that, and everybody feels better after meeting them. Everybody, and they don't, whether they may not even know how helpful they are. They just do it. It just happens. It flows through them. I was on a plane the other day, and we had an what are they called? They used to be called stewardess. That was a long time ago. And and then they became air hostess or host. And now there's a more current word, it escapes me now. Anyway, he was a flight attendant, I think that's the word. So, and he was just so present with everything that the question he asked, he was really wanting to know how he could help you. And I told him afterwards, as we left the plane, I said, "You are doing the most wonderful job." And he was very happy to hear that. He made everybody feel good. He was spreading that energy that ultimately comes through being present. So he transcended the mere function that he was doing, and so some added dimension came in. He made perhaps he didn't know that at all. He would not have been able to tell you that. It just happened through him. So when it happens, it's wonderful. So these are people who want to use a somewhat cliche expression, but still true. They make the world a better place. People like that make the world a better place, where they bring that loving kindness is a word you could use for that. They bring loving kindness is an aspect of presence. So loving kindness, if loving kindness flows through you into the world, it means that at least to some degree you have transcended who you are, who or what you are as a person. So something transcendent has come in to some degree, and so that flows into this world and makes the world a better place. So that's a very powerful thing too. Now this flight attendant, I don't know whether it could be that he'll work for the next 20 years, happily spreading presence as a flight attendant, or who knows, maybe he will do something else and spread presence there. It doesn't matter. Again, as I often say, the how is more important than the what. How you do what you do is more important than what you do, because the how refers to your state of consciousness that's behind the doing. The how is the being behind the doing.